So I had the pleasure of talking to Joanna Angel, who's author of Club 42, which comes out February 16th. And is it Cleis or Cleis?
Cleis.
Cleis? Okay. See, the
Yeah.
East Coast in me wants to move my vowels in a certain way when I want to pronounce them, but living in the
Yeah.
Midwest makes me completely want to change them too. So I'm always like, is it Cleis? Is it Cleis?
Cleis. Yeah.
So I got the book yesterday, late yesterday, and I think I'm about 3/4 of the way through it as a whole.
Oh my
Um,
God, thank you. You're so responsible. I've done so many interviews with people who haven't read the book at all, and it's kind of like, yo, you could have read like 2 pages, but I'm so happy because the book's not out yet, so I haven't really talked to people who have been reading it. And
Well, that was actually going to be one of my first questions is what has been the reaction to this, given the fact that, at least for me, not being super versed in this kind of medium as far as literature, I don't really know that I've ever heard of kind of a choose your own adventure erotic novel.
yeah, there really hasn't been any. So I don't want one that I found before I wrote the book, so I could do some research, but like literally one.
Hmm.
So it's not like a genre, like one erotic book. But well, what I know it's my interview, but what did you think? It's good. I actually prefer to know the
So it,
the thought of someone who doesn't read erotica usually, because
So
yeah.
what's funny about it, and I figured this was going to lead to a lot of really fun, interesting conversations. Is so one of my first jobs straight out of high school was working at a strip club,
Oh
and
my God, you are the
so
perfect person to read the book.
so the way it starts with Indica or Naomi, however you want to address her, because there's real in the
Many.
work life, as far as names and so forth. There was just so many things about the book that, like, I was reading it next to my wife while we were watching TV, or I was sort of watching TV, but like I just kept laughing because I was like, "Holy shit, that is! Oh my god, that's so fucking accurate!" Like the DJ, when you described the DJ, I was like, if he doesn't have long, greasy hair or
Of course
glasses,
he
and as soon as you described his hair, I was like, oh my god, it's totally that guy. And then when you were kind of describing Naomi's reaction to his voice, I always joke with my wife because, like, between my wife and some of our friends, we've gone to strip clubs all over the U.S. And I always is like, in my time in working there, I was like, they always have long, greasy hair. Usually, like, at least in my experiences, some of them are also doing like amateur porn on the side with
Yeah.
some of the girls that work there. And they always slip into that voice. And they're like, what do you mean? I was like, well, you hear it and it'll be like, guys, get your tips ready. Here comes the
Yeah, yeah,
lovely.
they have a certain voice.
And
Yeah.
they were like, well, you should do that. I was like, I don't have the hair, unfortunately. And something that was also really interesting to me, and I kind of want to get into this because maybe you can offer more insight as to why this is a thing. But I have found, other than when I go to like, shit, now I'm blanking on Magic City. When I go to Magic City, like, obviously their whole demographic is hip hop, and they play shit that I've never fucking heard, and I feel really dumb when I'm there because people like know the spots when the beat drops and they sing a song with it and all that kind of stuff, and then just an eruption of money goes and shit like that. But more oftentimes than not, hip hop is kind of not really allowed, or it gets played very minimally, or it's
Well,
edited, and it's like, why the fuck is that?
because strip clubs are mostly owned by old white men, who are kind of, I
Yeah.
don't know. I'm not going to make a huge generalization, but they think, oh, if we play rap music, it's going to be nothing but like thugs in here. That's what they think. They think it's going to change the crowd. Um, and they want those rich businessmen in there. And but to be fair, I feel like in every town you will have, I mean, I've traveled the country, and I have gone to strip clubs, and I feel like every town has the club that only plays hip hop, and then they have the clubs that specifically don't. So at least there is a place,
Right. That kind of caters to the demographics.
It is true. It does change the demographic of the club, and I guess some clubs really, really want those rich businessmen coming in, and then some of them don't. Some of them, they're owned by old white men who are like, oh, I don't want gangsters in here. I'm scared. That's that's kind of the truth. But there are all kinds of strip clubs. Actually, I guess because of my look. And like, I always dance to rock and metal. I don't really dance to hip hop. I'm not good at it, but some girls are really good at it. That's like their thing, and that's what they do. There are different clubs that have the different thing. But yeah, it is very common that you'll hear.
I think something that was interesting to me sort of about it though is not only just in the writing, but there's a lot of cool things about this book, and not even just in the erotic sense, but just in literature, the way you wrote it, the way you describe things, that I was like, this is so inclusive. I mean, yes, it gets
thank you. That was very important to me in the book. And that's what I think modern sex is. If you're going to write an erotic novel today, and you don't have like different kinds of sex, like that's just erotica these days should not be like limited to heterosexual sex. That's just not a realistic slice of sexuality right now. You know.
Well, I think that was kind of the interesting thing about it is, it felt very like, I felt like you were very aware of the various fetishes that people may have. I felt like you were very playing into, you obviously wrote it from a woman's perspective, but what was interesting is, like I don't necessarily want to give anything away, but there's a scene with the main character's boyfriend, and you talk about the duality that is prevalent in their relationship between how they are when they're just kind of home and the sex that they have, and then there's kind of this adventurous other side that Indica kind of starts having with Rob. And I think what's interesting about it is you describe how, oh, well, Rob wasn't this way, and am I should I play into the role playing we're doing or not, and the way you kind of threw the choose your own adventure style within that narrative, and the way you tackled explaining those stories, like, yes, here's kind of the more adventurous one, here's kind of more of a different way, was really interesting, because I feel like in some books when you're reading, you sometimes wonder, oh, I wonder how that could have played out differently. And here you literally are writing such a very full narrative of all the characters involved, and it's really interesting.
Thank you.
Granted,
did you go down the path where she doesn't tell Rob, or have you not gone down that one yet?
Doesn't tell Rob. Okay, so far I've gone through where she
Yeah, you wanted her to tell Rob about stripping, it seems like.
Okay, so I went down that path where he did, and then I went down the path of like where seemingly he leaves because of the mishap with the shoe.
Oh, okay.
Then the two different endings of their relationship kind of in the book. Obviously the one with, I think her name was Brandy. The kind of two scenarios between Tony and Brandy and the club in the first couple months there. I think through perusing, because I have a PDF, so it kind of gets a little bit harder when you're going back and forth and trying to remember, okay, so where am I going? Like, I literally got stuck because it was like, go back to 306, now go to 303, and I'm like, I already read these two. How do I get back to whatever choice did not get here? So it was a little bit challenging with that, trying to hurry up and get to some of the other stories. But
yeah, great. Well, that's awesome. I'm really glad you had fun with it.
Yeah, I think the other thing that was pretty interesting to me, and I kind of wanted to talk about this a little bit more, with the choose your own adventure style of writing, does that create more challenges in writing, or because you're not writing in a linear fashion, or does it actually make it easier because you're kind of open-ended and can tell multiple stories at once?
No, I mean, look, I guess I haven't had the pleasure yet of writing a whole novel that wasn't choose your own adventure yet, because this is my second novel. Both my first and second novel were choose your own adventure. So I honestly don't know what it's like to write a book. And writing a book is challenging to begin with, but this was very challenging. Not only, it's hard enough to come up with an idea. Everybody experiences writer's block. It's hard enough to come up with an idea, but like, you have to come up with lots of ideas, and all those ideas have to have the mini ideas. I mean, there's like 8 different beginnings, middles, and endings, and all of those 8 have their own little splits within them. So it does make it hard. It makes it complicated. And especially like, the most important part when you write a book is developing characters. And like, I had to just develop them and give them their own like characteristics, but then they had to be different in every single path, trying not to repeat yourself and just trying to make everything, different, or like, I get really like attached or into it when I'm writing like a storyline, and then like I get into it and then I'm like, well, now I have to wrap the storyline up and go back and like write a whole different one. So it was totally challenging. And like when I look back and even just I look back at the book and kind of read it and I'm like, how did I do this? It's one of those things in the thick of it. Like, I guess most of the time when I was writing the book, the best way to describe it is like I felt like I was swimming like underwater, and like I couldn't see the top until I finished.
What is, I don't necessarily like doing a whole lot of research anymore because I kind of feel like I'll know some of the answers or kind of steer it somewhere. But what is your writing process? Like, how do you just kind of jot a general a plot or slowly work at it, or what is your process?
I mean, I do start with an outline. I mean, at first it has to come up with, you have to start with just a vague idea. Like, this is a one sentence. This is the story of a girl that starts stripping in New York. That you have to come up with first. Like, first you just need like, what is this book about? And then after that, I just, I go into, I'll start writing down characters, sometimes I'll just kind of write out different like events. Yeah, then I'll write like an outline. But in this case, I needed like multiple outlines. It's actually more of like a book map. But this actually happened with my first novel and now my second one. I spent like a good few weeks on like a map. This is going to happen and this is going to go here and then this is going to go here. And halfway through the book, that map just went out the window. Because sometimes like while you're writing, you got to just go with your instincts and you just keep going. I would start writing. I'm like, no. Now that I know this character better, they wouldn't want to do that. So I'm just going to. And then halfway through the book, I'm like, I have to make a completely new map because all of this is fucked, and so that happened the first time I wrote the first book I wrote. And then in the second one, I was like, I'm going to make sure that doesn't happen this time. Now I have experience. Now I know what to do. And it happened this time too. So I think that's just normal, because it takes a long time to write a book. This is not like something you do over one night. It took me about, a hardcore working 4 months, but in total about 6 months. And the book was assigned, I did technically have a year to write it, but of course I didn't start till, months in, but I did have the idea a year, like as soon as the book was like assigned to me, like I had an idea pretty quickly. So at least I had the idea. And then 6 months later I started on the outline. But you have to understand that throughout that process, like you kind of change, like you have different ideas, like as you're writing, like your brain is not in the same place when you're in the middle of, when you're on page 220 than when you were on page 1, like you're, especially because you're kind of losing your mind. So you've been writing everything. You really start to like, especially writing fiction, like you really start to like feel like you become part of their world and like things just change. You're in a very different place mentally than when you first sat down and like, and made an outline. You know what I mean?
Out of curiosity, because something you were just saying about, kind of being ensconced in the world that you're creating, is there a bit of like I don't know if like separation anxiety is necessarily what I'm thinking of, but like, is there a bit of kind of like, oh, well, now that's done. And my relationship that I've basically built with this character, or this person I've created, like it's gone. Like I'm done with this person kind of. Was there any of that?
Well, no, they still exist in here, Okay. They exist inside the book, but I know what you mean. I would actually experience that while writing, like in Choose Your Own Adventure, because I write so much about one character. And then at a certain point, I'd have to wrap that story up and go back and develop a different character. Sometimes I'd have to like take a few days off because I was like, okay, I can't have like favorite. I need every single character and every single path and every single adventure to be just as important as each other. So it's almost like I had to like start over, but it's pretty strange. It's like you really feel like I don't know. You really feel like you've disappeared into a world that you've created. It's pretty cool. I think writing fiction is, I think, a great exercise for people. especially these days, you know, everybody's very like social media and whatever. Everybody's very obsessed with like themselves, you
Yeah.
know. And I'm guilty of it. I kind of have to be for a living. I have to promote myself and exploit myself and like be my version of myself on steroids all the time, if that makes any sense. And I feel like everyone's like that. Whether you're a celebrity or not, you're kind of always reporting about yourself to the public, like with social media these days. And writing fiction really helped me just like escape, you
Mm.
know, like I'm talking about myself. These are other people. I am like getting into the minds and brains of other people. And I think it's a pretty healthy thing to do.
Well, I think, something you kind of touched on there is something that I've often kind of noticed and always actually really wanted to kind of shed more light on and have someone on this podcast to kind of talk about it a little bit. But it's like I've always kind of noticed that the porn industry has really been one that was one of the first where being your own brand was huge
Yeah.
to your success. And it seems like a lot of things that we now see so many people doing, mainstream celebrities and so forth, where they have a brand, they venture out into all these things, and it's kind of very much about them and how they present themselves. Like you said, basically just kicked up like a shitload. And I've always thought that the porn industry basically set the tone for the rest of what mainstream entertainment's going to do. I mean, you look at renting from when you had VHS tapes and could rent and stuff
Totally.
like that, to then even getting away from that and going to DVD versus I think it was Laserdisc or whatever at the time, to having streaming stuff, to clips online, to now having various forms of social media and so forth. And it was one of those where it's always intrigued me that for as everyone looks down on the industry, it's the one that creates and basically is the foundation for what everything else fucking does. And I'm always like, it's
I mean,
it's shocking.
I've seen like clothing ads that completely imitated
Mm.
porn. I mean, where else are you going to go if it's part of your job to make girls look sexy? You're going to get inspired. I've seen music videos that are definitely like they definitely took inspiration from a porn. And sometimes it's frustrating because you can like, you know, especially with these pop stars, it's like their budget is clearly much larger than the budget of a porn. So they take some of our ideas and they make them much better.
But I think that speaks to, you
Yeah,
know,
but
when I was messaging with your publicist yesterday, I was like, oh, I've always wanted to get Joanna on because I feel like you are very much in the same rock metal space that this podcast typically exists in, but you, from your career starting Burning Angel and stuff, like I remember hearing about it from my now best friend's now wife, but when they were dating, like had gotten one of the first Burning Angel DVDs, and I was like, this is yours? She goes, it's, that, and I know it's a taboo kind of thing to talk about now, but what was that fucking site that every girl was on, every alternative girl was on? I could
let's
see
just
that.
say,
Yeah, Suicide Girls had some of that kind of stuff, and it was interesting because you married the kind of DIY punk rock scene that I think a lot of us in the metal and harder alternative styles of music are into, because that's how we had to do it. Any kind of success we got it's built on our own hard work and the connections we've made.
yeah,
And it seemed like, thinking about those early Burning Angel DVDs of having some of the punk rock bands that you knew, lend you the music and so forth. And it was one of those where you have been always goal oriented and very business driven. And it's been one where to see over the, almost 20 years, I guess, or almost at this
so
point, that
great the
it's,
time. Oh,
I know. And it's one of those where when I see your career and I see what you've done, it's like, well, yeah, the foundation was there for her to be successful. She fucking worked at it and has built an empire. Like, why wouldn't we want more people who kind of came from nothing to kind of have you be like the beacon of like, look, you can do it too. You just have to fucking want it.
wow, I really appreciate that you said that. You know, I feel like a lot of people don't even, you know, I feel like a lot of people now they don't realize like it's hard to really even explain to people like this is Burning Angel 20 years ago. Like it's almost like people don't believe me. People, it's so easy now to start your own brand and like get your name out there and like, you know, like I did these things before there was like a Twitter or like a Facebook or like a place where you can go viral or like, you know what I mean? I feel like when I tell people about the beginning days of Burning Angel, like I'm talking about like the Stone Age.
But I mean,
Especially
that was a very transitional time, and I feel like you were one that kind of realized the industry was changing, and it was kind of going, something I think I remember you saying actually in one of those DVDs, the behind the scenes of it. I think you had said something to the effect of like, people want to see themselves, essentially. They want to see people that they see every day, not these unattainable models types. And
yeah,
you were so far ahead of what would become now like the amateur boom of what we're seeing in the
yeah,
industry. And it's like, it's hard not to sit there and go like, she fucking called it 20 years ago and now here we are. Like, give props where it's due.
yeah. Well, thank you. Yeah, I guess you understand the beginning.
Well, I think you even kind of, and that's something else that I thought was really interesting about the book, is I feel like you have done a very good job of, I mean, it's not this way to me because, like I said, I've spent time in this realm, but like destigmatizing the negative aspects of it, like where it's like, yes, you kind of talked about some of the gross looking dudes that are there and, their chest hair and their whatever, but you also showed kind of the sincerity of some of the like why, like the relationships you grow with some of these people that you see week in and week out,
Oh,
your regulars and so forth. And it really humanizes the experience, which is what I took away from it. And there's so many things that, I get a lot of like, oh, you worked at a strip club? And I'm like, it was at 18, it probably was one of the greatest things for my development as a person. Like, I
yeah.
learned that women of all shapes and sizes are beautiful. I learned that there are various reasons why people get into it, and it's a job. And at the end of the day, the one thing that they're selling, and you make a great point of this in your book, is what is more empowering than literally only selling yourself? You are the only thing you have to sell. That's the ultimate in
Yeah.
self-confidence. And you
Yeah.
did that very well in what, Naomi's first experience, and as she gained more confidence throughout and all that kind of stuff. And I was just like, see, this is basically what I saw, and why
Well,
I wish more people would have that experience and go into it with those kind of perceptions.
people really with all aspects of sex work, they don't treat it like a regular job. Like what I definitely tried to do in this book, and I've actually read other books, I guess, about sex work. And I feel like everything is such an extreme in the book. Like either it's a story of trauma,
Mm.
or it's a story of like everything is empowering, everything is amazing. And, just this attitude where I've, read certain things, books of either fiction or nonfiction about sex work where it's like, and this guy, he's just nothing but money to me and I want his money and blah, blah, blah. Like almost just like everything is just so extreme,
Mm.
and it's like, there's really special things about sex work where like some days are just days and there's good days and there's bad days. And a bad day doesn't mean you're like triggered or you're like going through trauma. A bad day could mean like you're kind of hungover and you don't really know how to pull it together, and you need to like put a good face on, like, and like, that's just part of what you got to do, like it's one thing when you're having a bad day and everybody has a bad day and you have to go to work and sit behind a desk and suck it up. But it's another thing when you are having a bad day and you have to get naked and like flirt with people. Um, so I tried to just capture like, here is the day-to-day life of somebody who worked at a strip club, and there are friends and there are enemies and there are humorous things. And I also think the relationship between the girls and the customers is special. Like, some really handsome guys come in, and even the funny looking guys, like you have still a special relationship with one another. And it doesn't mean like the girl is just looking at him as nothing but like a cash cow, and the guy is looking at her because he's pathetic and lonely and can't get laid. Like there's like a lot more to it than that. Like, like all walks of life come into a strip club, like it's not like this like cartoonish version of like it's nothing but lonely, don't get laid. Like people who get laid go to a strip club. People go for all sorts of reasons. People go because it's their birthday. People go because they are going through like a tough time, or people will go just because, I don't know, they got off work and the strip club was right there and they were killing time, like, like, and and girls work there for all sorts of reasons. So I try to really humanize it and make a real account of all the different aspects of stripping. And that's very fun that you worked at a strip club, so you understand.
It's it's such an interesting thing, like there was a handful of things throughout the book that so far that I've read where I was just like, God, this reminds me of this that happened in my life. Like, and it's something I was waiting for, and maybe it happens just because it's another side of that work experience that I still laugh at when I think of it when I go back to strip clubs and shit like that. But like having worked the door initially when I started, I was down by the bathrooms, and there were times I would hear one of the girls and she'd be like, "Oh my God, I had some bad food. I'm just not feeling good." And then you'd hear, "Hey, so-and-so is coming up next to the stage," and she'd come running out after just basically clogging the toilet.
Yeah, you got to just pull it together.
And then, I'm like, there are dudes literally throwing a shitload of money at this girl, no pun intended, after she just literally like shit her pants out and like is, clogging a toilet, and I'm taking care of that and she's making money.
Oh.
But it's just kind of like the allure of kind of all of it. It's something else that was kind of interesting, and I really was kind of like on edge a little bit when you were writing about Naomi and Rob, like of her explaining to him, like, so this is my job.
Mm-hmm.
And what was interesting,
what I in the book that there's two different paths where she tells him about her job, and then there's a whole story where she hides it from him, and like there chapters and chapters and chapters of her just leading a double life. So
I haven't gotten there yet, sadly.
That part's very fun. So in one part, Rob is like a nice guy and he's supportive, but in the other one he's totally not supportive, and that happens too when you're a stripper. 9 times out of 10 strippers have terrible boyfriends. I was one, so but anyway, sorry.
It was funny though, because it reminded me of, I was dating this girl and we had been dating for like maybe 2 weeks. And I remember like we pull up to my house and she's like, "I have to tell you something." And I was like, "Oh shit, something serious." Just by the tone. And I was like, "You're a stripper?" And she was just like, "No." And then it like lingered and I was like, "You do amateur porn?" And she was like, "Not entirely." And I was like, "Just tell me whatever it is." I was like, "I worked at a strip club, like and it's your choice, your body, you do whatever you want. Like, just at least tell me what you're doing so I at least know." And she's like, "So a couple times, like, I've done this thing with some friends where I basically am on a fetish site where I beat up dudes topless." And I was like, "Okay." And then she's like, "Well, you're fine with this?" Like, "I don't care. That's your choice. You can do whatever you want." And then, but being a typical guy, as soon as she like left to go get something, I like immediately beelined and went onto the site. And the first thing I saw was some leggy blonde just throat kicking the shit out of some dude, and I laughed so hard, and I was like, "Yeah, I'm fine with that."
I know. Yeah, it's always like a thing because it's a tough thing, relationships and sex work, because fortunately with porn, it was like, if I went on a date with someone, they already knew, like, well, once I got to a certain level, it was impossible to hide that. But yeah, because it's like, sometimes you don't want to bring it up on the first date because you don't want that to be the only thing you talk about, and you don't want you want to see how they act with you normally, so you don't want to bring it up on the first date. But then if you bring it up too late, then it's like weird too. It's like it's very difficult. And then also as like a person, dating or whatever, you're doing, like, you have to find the perfect balance. It's hard to find that magic thing, because if you go on a date with someone and they're too into it, then it's annoying and it's weird, and like they're like getting off to it. Like, you don't want that. You don't want somebody too into it, and you also don't want somebody who hates it. You need to find that a happy medium where they're kind of like, okay, but which is very hard to find, because people usually don't just shrug their shoulders and say okay to, like, a job where you're naked, or or you're having sex with people for a living, or whatever it is. So that's the tough thing, because like a lot of times the people who are really into it can be worse than the people who hate it, because the people who hate it, at least you know where they stand and you know what to expect, and you just have to make that decision. Well, this person hates it. If I'm going to stay with them, I either can't do it anymore or I just need to break up with them. And it just makes things very clear cut. When somebody like is really into it, it's almost like, it's like then I actually did that for a little while, like once, where it's like the person, I was just like dating someone who was like so into it, where like all he went, it's like almost like I went to work and like got, was getting people off at work, like, and then it's like I'd come home and I'd have to like get him off by telling him the story of everything that happened at work. I'm like, I just want to talk about what we're going to eat for dinner. Like, to me, work is normal,
Right.
It's, like, at a certain point, it's like, I think you're more of like a fan than like you know what I mean? Kind of like, I think at this point you have to start paying me to like hear about these, like, so you got to find just like a happy medium, and that's hard to find, and not everybody's like that.
We sort of, in you talking, about finding a balance, it actually kind of, something, I've been with my wife for 10 years, been married for 5. And, something I ask, because I, work a full-time job, so does she. I do this, which is essentially almost another full-time job and so forth.
Yeah.
And, something I try to gain some perspective and knowledge from some people that are way more successful and busier than I am. How have you found a way to find balance in your life? It seems like you're so career-oriented and goal-oriented. And I know, obviously, you, without overstepping, I know you have a partner that seemingly is as well. So I feel like that helps. But I mean, how have you been able to find the balance of work and personal life and just, maybe fucking off and doing nothing sometimes?
Yeah, I mean, I think for a very long time I really didn't have any balance, but that's okay because I loved my work being my whole life. And when I met my who's now my husband, when I did meet him, I think I was pretty honest about that. And so I just, but I also knew that he was very much excited to be part of my world, It did come to a point though. And, everybody says it to like small business owners, which is essentially what I was. People would be like, you need to find balance. But like, you know what? If you're a small business owner, you don't need balance. You need to make your business succeed. That is the most important thing. But that's why at a certain point, when the day came, when I got to buy the business, I sold Burning Angel about 2 years ago. I don't know if you knew that or not. It was time, and I'm very happy that I did everything that I did that got Burning Angel to that point, because now I can relax more, but it's still not really part of my personality to relax. So I'm still like, I never really skipped a beat, but you got to just be happy. I mean, that's the most important thing. If you're happy working all the time, then work all the time, but if you're not happy working all the time, then you got to find a way to change that. But I guess balance has never been very important to me. I managed to always, like, because Burning Angel was like a company that like really like aligned with everything I loved, I was just able to, like, everything I was passionate about. Like if I went to like a concert, it was also kind of work related, because, in some way or another, like, Burning Angel was like this whatever metal rock and roll like website, like being part of the music scene was important for that. So it's, I could almost justify everything as like, well, this is work-ish, but not work. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
When you love what you do, it doesn't feel like work. But I did take my first like real vacation like after I sold the business. And that was really nice. But you know what? Even like after like I went on like a 5-day hike, I didn't touch my phone or whatever. And then I went on a beach vacation where I did nothing for like a week. After 2 weeks of doing like nothing, like I was like, okay, that was enough vacation. And this was the first vacation I took in like 15 years. So, you got to just, but I will say I've always loved like cooking, and eating is something that you need to do every day, no matter how busy you are. So like sometimes when life was really busy, even just like cooking a meal for a good 2 hours was like a really good way for me to have just like okay, this has nothing to do with work. This is like nothing like, this is just like time for me, but yeah, finding,
What's one of your favorite dishes to cook?
ooh, I like making a lot of different dishes. Hmm. I don't know. I don't know. I mean,
Or I guess maybe here's a better way to ask that question. What do you think if you were to make something that represents you in a culinary way, what would it be?
ooh, man, that's a good question. Well, when I do cook, like I do like a challenge because like I said, if I'm just gonna have something simple, I'll just order takeout, like I don't need to, if I'm just making something quick and simple. So when I do cook, I want to cook something um kind of complicated, but I specialize in, like, I like making healthy, kind of like paleo or keto or whatever foods. There was a while where I made my own cauliflower crust, and like I really perfected it. I like got it down where I could make it, I could lift it up, I could like sandwiches out of it, like just basically out of cauliflower and eggs and spices and stuff like that. So I guess my specialty, if I would ever like open a restaurant or something, I would make I would take dishes like lasagna or pasta or pizza. I'd take like traditional junk food like dishes and I'd make them paleo. That's kind of what I do when I feel like cooking. Is I take a dish that I'd want to eat and then I figure out how to make it like healthy, and then I challenge myself to do it.
Have you, excuse me, have you thought about making a cookbook?
I've thought about it. Maybe one day. We'll see. We'll see.
What are, that was kind of something else I kind of wanted to know, like with just how diverse of a quote unquote portfolio you have with all the businesses and so forth that you've done. What is something, 20 years into your career and being as successful as you have, what is something that you want to do but maybe haven't started yet that, drives you or has you excited for like the next big challenge?
I don't know yet. I mean, finishing this book was one of them, and now I'm done. Um, well, right now, my husband hates when I talk about it, but I guess at some point now, finally, after 20 years, I'm like, maybe, just maybe, I want to have a baby. I don't even know. I might even be too old. We'll see. But it was something I never really, wanted, or my whole, I always thought about my business. So I guess it was kind of funny because as soon as I sold the business, that was like kind of the first time I thought about it. So I guess my business was like my baby. But I don't know. I want to, right now my big goals are not work related. I guess I have like, I guess my goal right now is to try to do slightly less work. Like I want to, before COVID, I was going to go on like a 3 week like hike in like Mexico by myself. Like, I just like, I want to do shit like that. I want to, but then COVID hit and I couldn't go anymore. So, I want to travel. I actually want to see if I could maybe get into the world of like radio or like podcasting or like something like that, but I just, I'm still directing. I'm still, I'm still shooting. I'm definitely still working. But yeah, I guess my goal now is to, I just want to like have more fun and chill, you know? Yeah, I think I've hit most things on my bucket list. Maybe I hope to write another book. I really enjoy doing it. But yeah, I'll see where the world takes me.
It was kind of funny as I was reading this book, and because I played a game that was a sort of choose your own adventure kind of style game very recently, which I don't usually play those kind of games, so it's kind of serendipitous timing that I just literally played a game that way that has multiple endings and so forth, and now here I am reading essentially a book of the same kind of.
Which game?
It's called Man of Medine, or Medan. It's sort of I guess at least there's another game already, but like this guy, and it's a famous actor, and I totally am blanking on his name, that is the likeness and the voice of this narrator who throws you into a story that's happening. And the one that I picked, because a video game store was going out of business, so it was like super cheap. So I was like, fuck it, whatever. And you're basically like a crew of like 4 or 5 friends or whatever that are looking for like buried treasure of sorts out in the ocean, and some shit happens, and like ghost ship stuff and whatever, and you're trying to get all of your crew to get out alive. So I thought I was doing really good, and then I lost 2 of my people right at the end, and I was like, God damn it! Now I got to play this all over again and get them all out. But it was kind of interesting because during that game, they would give you stats like, you know, this many people when they play it, this is what they chose to, or, you know, more people did this, or. And I was thinking, it was like, it'd be kind of cool if there was some way to have an interactive experience with this book, where then when you're choosing what you choose, you can see who else has chosen. Like, oh, more people chose this versus whatever. Just a weird interactive part of it.
Yeah.
Almost like, or turn it into a weird like VR game or something. I don't know.
Yeah, right. Well, that would be fun to know, like, you know, which people picked what. I mean, I hope everybody goes back and
no, for sure.
That's the goal. But, you know, I guess we'll see. I mean, I feel like there's always one path. You know, some of them, it's like, you know, they're picking one, like the more sexual ones where it's like, do you want to go with Brandy or nah, do you want to go by yourself? Like, of course, you know.
I asked my co-host, I was like, hey, do you want me to send you the PDF? Because we're not going to get to this episode for probably another week or so. So he'd have time to read it. And I was like, and he goes, I think I'd rather just, you know, talk about the episode itself. And I was like, Dan, I was like, I really wanted to ask you, did you choose anal sex or did you choose the hand job? And he was just like, yeah, I don't really feel comfortable answering that. And I was like, well, I'll be the pervert for both of us, and I guess now I have to go down all these story avenues so I can tell you what happens and all that kind of stuff. But it was sort of funny, and I just was thinking about more of an interactive experience with this and the possibilities of that and so forth. Kind of changing gears just a little bit. You know, this is something that I know you are a part of, but I haven't really seen you, again, talk too much about this. Doom's Whiskey.
Oh yeah, I know. Well, yes, that is my husband and I. It's a whiskey that we own. You can buy a bottle at doomswhiskey.com. That is something I need to work on more. I have to say the world of alcohol is really much more challenging than I thought it would be. God damn. I got very spoiled. I became such an important person in the porn industry where if I wanted something to happen, even if I couldn't happen, I at least knew what steps I needed to take to try to make something happen. And like, God, alcohol has been very difficult. And I also need to say it made me really appreciate porn because I met some huge scumbags in the liquor industry in my dealings with it. Bigger scumbags than I've ever met in the porn industry. So I need to say that. But Doom's Whiskey, it is our small batch whiskey that my husband and I have created. And at the moment, which I'm working on expanding, at the moment, we only have distribution in California.
I'd love to see if I could get it in my area, and sadly I can't.
I buy a bottle online and get it sent to you. If you go on doomswhiskey.com, you can get it. You know, you can get a bottle shipped to you. Which
can you?
I know. Yeah, you can.
Okay.
You can.
Cool.
Yeah.
I'll have to buy a bottle when I'm done with this.
So that's the way you can get it. But that is my goal this year. Now that you've asked me other things I'm doing, I need to get nationwide distribution for Doom's Whiskey because that would be amazing. So we'll see. We'll see if I can.
Because what I've read, flavor profile of it, it sounds really interesting. So how did you two land on this kind of being the flavor profile you wanted?
I have to give, my husband was a craft cocktail bartender when I first met him. And I used to hear the way him and his friends talked about liquor. Like, to me, I was like, liquor is something I drink to get drunk. Like, I was not like romantic or, you know, I didn't like intellectualize it the way these people did. And I was like, you know, and he would always like, I'd see him do these whiskey tastings and or whatever when I'd go to work with him. You know, and I would sit at the bar when he was working, and I just remember being like, you should have your own whiskey, you know? And he was like, oh, I have my ideas and blah, blah, blah. And I looked into it. So I was more like the business one. I figured out how to make it happen, and I hooked us up with a distiller. But then once that started, basically it started with a distiller sent us like a like a base. I don't even know what the right word is for it. Just like, this is my whiskey. And then it
Right.
was just like, add this, take away this, raise this, do this. And they went back and forth for like a year until they developed like a flavor profile. So that's how they came up with it. But it's very tasty and it's very good whiskey. And it's been tested by so many like whiskey snobs.
Oh, I pulled up one just because like I said, since I can't have any, and obviously
But
even
yeah,
what was that? Yeah, no, I'm as soon as like I said, as soon as we're done, I'm definitely gonna order a bottle.
yeah.
But the interesting thing, like I'm reading one right now, and because it talks about the caramel and the vanilla flavors and so forth, and it's a rye, which I'm typically not a super big fan of, but ryes are to me a little bit overwhelming with kind of their smoky flavor and so forth. And the thing that was interesting about this one is, the guy writes that there's a delicate mix of bright and slightly acidic vanilla balanced by the rye and lilac, which really kind of threw me for a minute. And then he talks about, on the palate, it has a really creamy, caramel, sweet, but not super earthy and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, and, has like some nutmeggy flavor on the back end burn. And I'm just kind of like, fuck, man, like I need some of that.
Yeah. Oh, it sounds like
So I mean, it's one of those where I think a lot of people get involved in spirits and so forth, and I'm a huge collector. Big part of sort of the other part of our podcast name is brew. Craft cocktails, craft beers, and so forth. And it's one of those where you
maybe
meet.
I can probably. I'll see. I don't know if it's so hard to. I would just send you a bottle, but I can't even ship it myself, so it's kind of like almost easy to order it. But yeah.
But I was gonna say it's one of those things where you see a lot of people getting involved in this space, and then I've talked to some people, and they're like, oh, I don't know. We just basically gave them the license to use our name or whatever, and we weren't involved in any way, shape, or form. So, especially with a whiskey, I feel like there's so much more involved in it and the fermentation process, and especially when you're trying to add different flavor profiles, like it seems like you are with this, that it seems like either you or both of you or someone really had to know what they wanted specifically, because that's not a typical kind of a rye flavor. So I was kind of intrigued to see that and be like, all right, well, how did you get involved and how involved were you?
Yeah. No. I mean, my husband, he really like very much, he came up with the recipe. So yeah, and it's very unique. And it's trademarked, so like no one else can have it. So it is one of a kind. Like the actual, or whatever, the blend. I don't know.
Yeah, the proprietary blend. Is there plans to expand the line and do some other?
Oh, yeah, I'd love to. I've had such a hard time getting this thing off the ground. It's been frustrating to me because I'm used to, things just happening. But yes, there's definitely plans, and I should make, hopefully this year, because we did have a lot of plans, but COVID kind of messed them up. We had all these deals. We were going to, that we got the whiskey into like a whole bunch of new bars, and we were going to have opening parties and events and this and that. And, COVID kind of put a stop to that. So, and it's hard because people were like, well, people are buying more liquor than ever. But I'm like, that's at liquor stores. And for people to buy your liquor at a liquor store, they need to like already go in knowing your liquor. So for a small, the bars and stuff is where you really get your name. So a lot of the plans we had kind of got put on hold. So hopefully 2021 we can make. Now you've motivated me. You asked about it and being excited about it. You've motivated me. So I will make something happen. And I hope by the end of this year we can have nationwide distribution too.
That'd be good. Like I said, I'm a big whiskey person, and one of my things, like there's obviously having drinks with different people, and someone that we're going to have on the show soon is actually Johnny Cleis from Avenged, and his show that he does, Drinks with Johnny. And so
yep. He does a show like about liquor?
Yeah, so basically he does just kind of a bullshit, like, you talk, you can find it on YouTube. It's more or less a YouTube podcast kind of thing. And, he usually has a cocktail or a few or whatever. So it's one of those like where I'm really looking forward to having him on this, because it's like, cool. So the two things I love doing are shooting the shit with people and basically having drinks. And usually those allow you to have a little bit more of a looser conversation, because you're just kind of sitting there going like, yeah, okay, like, hey, cool, whatever. So I'm really looking forward to it. I'm actually talking to one of my craft cocktail friends that works at one of the bars I go to, and I'm like, yo, we should make a drink for him that's going to be specific for him for that show. So like when we're drinking, I'm like, yo, this is, you know, your drink essentially that I made for the, or had someone make for this show. And I'm kind of going around with some ideas of like my flavor profiles I'm thinking of and so forth. So it's
well, maybe Duke whiskey could be incorporated into it. So
you know, it's funny. I when we did the rebrand and changed to from my old podcast name to BREWtally Speaking, it was a thing where I figured the opportunity to, you know, not necessarily like this sounds kind of crass, but it's like I didn't necessarily want free shit, but I also wanted to get to the point where it's like, look, I drink a lot of different stuff, and you know, I'm basically promoting. I'm getting and have a platform of some level that people would be like I was on drinking the Metallica beer and for an episode, and you know, a lot of people thought it was funny because I go, this people who stop drinking shouldn't be making alcohol. and then I just kept making other jokes about it. I was like, oh, it tastes like Lars's snare tone on Saint Anger. Like everyone hates it. And it just was a thing where I was like, that was really bad. And like, I'm not gonna be, you know, if I like something, I like it. And, you know, my thing was there are so many, the world of spirits and beers is just growing. And even, you know, having Willie from Lamb of God, because they created a non-alcoholic beer. So that, and I was surprised at how good it tasted.
That's
And
awesome.
we were talking about how the non-alcoholic craft space is expanding now. And even getting into like seltzers and so forth. And now you're seeing hard lemonades coming up, and you're just seeing the boom of craft everything, craft teas, craft water. Like, so it's
liquid death, you know, that water.
Love it. I'm surprised
I
I liked it. And
yeah.
I love using the can over and over again because it just keeps your water so fucking cold. But
it's, you know, it's so funny. I always have water with me, like in the car. You know, we live in California; it's dry. I don't know. I got pulled over once because I was literally drinking it in the car, and I was like, "It's water," and the car was no way. Like, and I was just chugging it because I was really thirsty. So I was like driving and chugging it. So he thought I was just drinking. I was like, it's water. And he's like, no, it's not. I'm like, taste it. Look at it. Look at the ingredients. And the cop was laughing hysterically. I was like, dude, wow, you must have looked at me and thought, look at this idiot, you know, like chugging water while driving, like chugging.
I had the same experience. I brought a couple of cans with me into work, and at the time I had like a long workbench kind of set up, and I just had it sitting behind stuff so I didn't get it knocked over or spilled. And people were like, "You just drinking like a fucking tall boy at work?" And I was like, "Yes, I brought a tall boy into work, and I'm just drinking it. Like, come on."
Open. That's so funny. But they did that on purpose.
Oh, for sure.
They did it so you would get that reaction, you know.
It's one of those like you know, I saw a lot more potential for cross promoting. I'm a huge proponent and a fan of it, especially smaller brands working together to kind of help each other grow. So it was a thing where I thought that was going to be something that could happen, and then I was surprised that everyone I got into dealing with liquor laws, state laws, and so forth, it's actually a hell of a lot harder than I fucking thought it was going to be.
So difficult. I know. And it sucks because I have so many people who are like, I want to do something with Dooms. I want to do something with Dooms. And I'm like, well, I can only do something in California. And it's like, it's very hard. I've told people, I'm like, you know, I'm happy to collaborate with people, but it's actually cheaper for me to go buy someone else's, like to go to the store and buy a bottle of something than to give away my own, you know what I mean? So sometimes people are like, let's do this event. I'm like, it's just not worth. I don't have enough product, and I can't just give away so much free product. Like every bottle is pretty expensive. Like it would literally, you know, so I have to pick and choose what I can do, and I can't just, you know, we're so used to like liquor companies, the big ones, they give away product like it's nothing. They will ship pallets of things to, you know, I mean, I was like, Burning Angel didn't even promote liquor in any way at all. And I remember that company, I think because they wanted like hip people to drink it, that Sparks. It was like a but like awesome. I remember like someone from Sparks just like contacted me. Like I think they were just contacting anyone, I don't know, with a following. I don't even know what it was. This was so long ago. And they were like, oh, you're like a person, you know, like a tastemaker, whatever they called me. Like, you know, if you could just like we just want you to have this. This was before Twitter, so it's not even like tweet about this. They're like, we just want you to have this. Like, they got my email. I'm like, okay. They shipped to the old Burning Angel office like a pallet of sparks. There was like so much, and I'm like, what are we gonna do? Like we don't throw parties. We're a porn site. We can't. We're not gonna give this out. So
there's just a can always in the background of every scene.
We had boxes and boxes everywhere. And this is when I still lived in New York, so that, you know, apartments were small. There was like Sparks was taking up like my whole apartment. And so, you know, that's what like liquor companies do. And like, I'd go broke if I did that kind of thing, you know, but you know, so like we careful with what cross promotions we do, because a lot of times with liquor, cross promotion means tons of free product, which, you know, exactly.
Well,
I
think that's something that you probably have learned, though, is it at times maybe it devalues your brand in the same sense too.
Yeah, exactly. Because I did not find much value in Sparks after that.
I don't know if anyone did either.
Yeah, God, that's
God,
funny.
that takes me back to like, oh.
And it was like very 2005, right?
That and Four Locos, yeah.
Yeah.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty fun. Well, anyway, I do have to get ready. But why don't you tell me, because I was just actually stressing what was your favorite part that you've read so far, because I'm trying to decide which part I'm going to read. I've been actually having issues with it. I don't know. Was there any passage that stuck out to you?
So it did, and it's a very weird reason why, and it was the jerk off booth part. That whole scene going to the store.
I actually love that chapter. I'm glad you said that, because that was one that I thought of. That's a very funny chapter, right?
It is, and the reason that it was funny to me is, you know, Naomi's talking about the scene and how she's, you know, remembering the box cover and all that kind of stuff, and then felt inconvenienced that the guy up front couldn't even provide the tissue box, a full one. And it reminded me of when I worked at Deja Vu, we had like the jerk off booths, and sometimes I would work and so we would work the morning. A lot of times I'd work the morning shift. Another kind of tie over to the clientele that shows up at that point. But we would open and there'd be a line, and I'm like, holy shit, there are people that are here at 10 o'clock to fucking see the girls? No, they beeline for the jerk off booths and then fucking get out of there. And I was like, they made a joke once. They're like, yeah, you got to clean that once every other day. And I was like, I'm not fucking doing that. And then finally they're like, no, we pay like a bum. He just comes in and basically paints over it every week. They just painted over the walls. And like
that's a new one. I haven't heard that before.
They would just paint the walls. I mean, no pun intended. They paint the walls white again and just paint the walls. But you would see like at one time they were like, yeah, you know, like you get it. Like I was like, why are we repainting the ceilings? Like, oh no, like you'll see like people fucking throw it on the ceiling and shit. I was like, why? And then, you know, I was almost expecting one of your day shift stories, and maybe I just haven't come across it. Is I remember in your story.
My other book, Night Shift, is all about a porn store with jerk off booths in it. Like the whole book is about jerk off booths, more or less. You should read that next.
Yeah.
But so, the small section of this book.
It was really funny though, because like I remember during the day shift we'd be in the VIP lounge watching The Price is Right on the giant TV back there, and then if it was really boring, we would the girls would, because we had one who had won Pole Olympics out in Vegas like a couple years running, and just absolutely amazing to watch. And she took it upon herself to try to teach me in my stupid Deja Vu outfit that you have to wear the uniform to try to teach me pole tricks, and I ate shit so many times.
Funny. You know, it's like riding a bike once you do it, you know.
Yeah, I never learned though, but I also didn't know that the pole moved too, so when it moved with me I was like, oh shit. So but
well, thank you. It's so good to meet you.
You as well. Where can everyone find you, or anything you would like to plug here at the end?
Yeah, you follow me on Instagram, just Joanna Angel. Follow me on Twitter, Joanna Angel. Both my accounts are verified. Do not follow a fake Joanna. Or if you do follow a fake Joanna, don't give them money. The lies they tell you. Don't be suckered. I don't have sick relatives that I need money for. I don't I'm not having problems in my relationship. I'm not so don't believe any of the lies. And yeah, please buy my book, Club 42. You can buy it on Amazon. If you follow me on Instagram or Twitter, I'm always posting links to different indie bookstores that have it. But you could buy it pretty much anywhere the books are sold. But it's Club 42 by Joanna Angel.
I know with a lot
Check
of
it out.
last question about that. I know a lot of independent authors that do stuff with indie bookstores. Are you doing any like signed versions on your store?
Well, yeah, the signing I'm doing tonight, I do have, yeah, I've been working with a few indie bookstores that have signed copies. So if you go on my social media pages, I have links to the signed copies there. Awesome. But they're very limited, so you got to get them soon.
Awesome. Well, enjoy the rest of your evening. Good luck with your virtual book tour, and looking forward to hopefully more people reading this book. It was a lot of fun chatting with you.
Definitely. Have a good night.
You as well.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Fucking sucked. Oh, that fucking sucked. Shao Kahn, what'd you think?
That was pathetic.
Yeah. Yeah. Coach, what'd you think?
Fucking embarrassing!
Okay. Okay. I mean, I knew it was gonna fucking suck, but I think those guys were a little rude. Austin Powers?
How about new?
Okay, I thought we were going to get the Austin Powers vote. We did not. John, use that for your podcast. It fucking sucks. But you knew what you were getting into. It's your own fault. It will result in less listens. You're going to see a decline in listeners if you start the show with that. You're going to see 30 seconds in, the number will plummet. And I will be there at the bottom of the plummet saying, I fucking told you. Don't use this fucking riff. It sucks. But it's yours.